buying books. Hey, everybody who's watching live now on X or YouTube, my computer opened it, my phone opened it. This is behind the scenes. This is the secret stuff that nobody sees. When you see it, good, but you're getting the secret right now. Okay, and then it goes connection lost, but it's back. Okay. Oh my God, my shoes just tied themselves together on the shoelaces. All right, I'm going to start now. This is how we. Jason, you're so cute. You're going to make me laugh. Okay. Yes, yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Witching Hour. You might see a familiar face here. You might see him with me on Wednesdays nights. You might have seen him here on this show before because he writes so dang many books. He is a witch. He is an author. He is a man about town, the one and only Jason Mankey. Welcome, Jason.
Welcome, Patty. I'm really excited to talk about your book today, Dollcraft.
Oh my God. I can't believe it. You have a copy and you have seen it and I haven't yet. I don't have a copy yet. My Dollcraft book.
It is
Ah,
adorable. It's smaller than I thought it would be. I thought it would be bigger, but I like this. It's like
I
like a
like little books.
yeah.
I like little books. They don't overwhelm my brain. That's why when we talk about tonight and the Big Blue Book, which was my first book on witchcraft, my
Whoa.
mama bought me as like that's much more overwhelming than Dollcraft. Anyway, let's get back to this. Now, it's funny, this may be the first time or one of the first times we have brought Black Phillip onto the show. Beautiful Black Phillip. I've got two. You are a better parent than I am, Jason. I must say, you travel and bring Black Phillip with you. You had Jason, I mean, you had Black Phillip ready to go today. I didn't. I had them locked in the basement somewhere. So my parenting skills, unless it's a dog or a cat, are not so good. But let's get on with this. You are a dear friend. You are my partner in the Witches Movie Coven every Wednesday live as we talk about movies, and we will talk about that. You are yourself a prolific writer. You have like 11 books out now, which amazes me. But you have a brand new book out, right? Tell us about that.
So this is High Priest Raymond Buckland, the father of American witchcraft, and it's a biography of Raymond Buckland, who wrote the Big Blue Book, and I think 50 other books of various size and quality over, wow, he wrote for over 50 years. I think
That
he
is
averaged a book a year until he died in 2017, and he started in like 67 writing books. There's a lot of books.
That is amazing. In the 80s, when I got into this, my mama being the supportive she was, that's the first book she bought me. She didn't even know who he was or what it was or what's witchcraft, but she figured that that was the first book I had to have. Huh.
It's a really iconic book. I think if people think of Raymond Buckland, and even if they don't know his name, they know that book. Since
Yeah.
it came out in 1986, it's looked the same. All the other books of that era have had their covers redesigned. The Buckland book is still a giant blue book with a pentagram on it, and that's all it ever needs to be.
Yep,
And
that is.
yeah, yeah.
So tell me, how did this come about to write about him? Again, many people don't know about him, probably should know about him. Any of us in the craft, he is what, the father of Wicca, right? In a sense.
He's one of the early pioneers and one of the first Wiccan witches in the United States, for sure. So this came about because Llewellyn asked me to write this book. It did not occur to me to ever write a biography in my life, but they were looking to have a Raymond Buckland biography come out, and my editor contacted me. She's like, Jason, there's something I want to talk to you about. And I just had this dread and this feeling that it was going to be a biography. And I was prepared to say no. I think I started talking about it during the pandemic, but I had a couple of other books to write first. And my friends that I would drink wine with were like, oh, you should do this. It would be so great for your career. You should totally do this and you should write this book. And I was about ready to say no, and then they convinced me to say yes, because Llewellyn says you write about history very well, so it's not boring. So if you were worried about reading a biography, apparently my writing is not too boring on that front. So that's how it came about. Some of the book is from Ray's unreleased memoir. He started writing a memoir before he died. It's not a particularly great memoir. It's mostly about cars that he liked. Ray, though he was a witch, loved cars. And there's long passages like the gremlin had really good tread even during the New Hampshire winters and things, stuff that no witch would ever be interested in. So that's
That's
why it'll never be published. And he also kind of goes from place to place. Like I was on this radio show, I was on this radio show, which doesn't make for very interesting reading either. But it was a real help while I was writing the book.
Oh, that's amazing. So yes, it's getting ready to come out, right? It's released early May.
May 8th is the official release date.
Yeah.
So this is an advanced reader copy, like Patty's book that I have an advanced reader copy.
Yay!
You can see
Advanced.
on the back it's not done yet, and like the spines are not attractive.
Yeah.
But it is generally what the book will look like when it does come out.
Beautiful. Your book's bigger than my book. Your book's bigger than
I
mine.
I hear that a lot. I think my magical name is verbose, Patty. I like to throw as many words in there as I possibly can.
Ah. So if somebody is new to the craft or old to the craft, they do or they don't know about Raymond Buckland, why would they want to get this book, a biography of this guy they do or don't know?
So Ray was one of the first public witches in the United States. He was born in London, England, and he moved over here in his 20s with his wife and his two boys and became interested in witchcraft. At this particular period of time in 1962, 1963, there are only really two ways to practice witchcraft. You can make up everything on your own, or you can be initiated into a witch group. And at the time, the one witch group that you could be initiated into was Gerald Gardner's Gardnerian witchcraft. Today, we would call that Wicca, but those people really called it witchcraft back in the day. And it was really believed that to be a witch, you had to be initiated. So Buckland starts writing some letters to Gerald Gardner. Then all of a sudden, he's writing letters to Gerald's high priestess. Her name is Monique Wilson. And eventually, they set up a date for Ray to fly over to Scotland, where she lives, and be initiated into Wiccan witchcraft. And then he starts a coven in 1964 in Long Island, New York. So that's a pretty big deal, bringing that stream of witchcraft into the United States. If that was all he had done, he would probably still be pretty famous, because by 1965, he's in newspapers. By the end of the decade, he's on television shows, radio shows, doing interviews. So he becomes a rather famous witch in an era when there really weren't a lot of famous witches. But
So how did he do that? Because did he had books coming out already? I mean, this was before TikTok and Instagram and Witch Talk and all that. So to get that fast onto television and stuff.
that's a really good question, because he will say sometimes that I just wanted to be private and I didn't want anybody to know. But in 1965, he's in two newspaper articles, of course, around Halloween, Samhain time. And if he's not telling people he's a witch, how would a newspaper know to contact him for him to be in a newspaper? Though he did have a friend who taught at a university in New York City, and that professor taught classes on magic and religion and witchcraft. So it's possible that newspaper writers got in touch with this friend, who then put them in touch with Raymond Buckland. But also during this time, 65, 66, he starts collecting witchcraft artifacts, and he begins displaying them in his basement. And eventually he decides that his basement should be a witchcraft museum. And so he starts inviting groups over to look at his witchcraft stuff. So I think that's really how he became famous early, in that Boy Scout troops would come into his basement and look at his collection of witchcraft stuff. And by 1971, this witchcraft museum was successful enough that it had its own building for a couple of years, also on Long Island. And he did that full time, though that didn't last very long. And then by 1969, he's writing books, and it makes a lot more sense why people would know who he is.
So any idea? I mean, witchcraft museums, not that there's a lot, but there's certainly one in England I went to and somewhere else. Do you think his stuff still exists anywhere?
So he kept all of his stuff over the years, and the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic exists today in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, so there you go. That was my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, the whole story of the museum is kind of fascinating, because it kind of starts as a hobby, and then he rents a house to house the entire collection. He and his wife get divorced in 1972, and he leaves New York and he moves to New Hampshire, where he sets up the museum for a couple of more years up there. But New Hampshire did not agree with Raymond Buckland because he did not like the winters. He would call them soul destroying in his memoir, which I think is a really great line, soul destroying winters. And he ended up putting the museum in boxes and in storage units for several decades. And then it kind of got reborn in the early 2000s. There were some starts and stops. He ends up entrusting the collection to one of his friends. One of his friends, her name is Tony Rotunda, and she owns the museum today. And yeah, that's in Cleveland, and it's run by Stephen Intermill, who has a long history of doing museum things. So it's a pretty professional operation, though it is small.
That's awesome. Thank you. Um, so in the book, it's pretty much, it's a biography, right? It's just his story. It's what it is and how he got there and things like that. You're not teaching spells or teaching how to be a witch or things like that, or are you?
So I wanted to make the book a little more interactive and a little more interesting and to share some of Ray. So at the end of every chapter, there's an excerpt from one of his books that's a magical lesson or a ritual of some sort. So there's a couple of excerpts from Practical Candle Burning Rituals, which was a big bestseller of his that was first published in 1970 and has been in print ever since that date. There's stuff from the Big Blue Book, and there's stuff from a couple of other sources. Ray was also very interested in spiritualism and talking to the dead, and did readings at Lilydale in New York and other places. So there's also some of that seance stuff in the book too.
Oh,
So
good.
I wanted to make it interactive that way. But also, anytime you do a biography of a person and you chart their life for 80 some years, you also get the evolution of what it is that they're interested in. So there's a lot of context to what witchcraft was like in the United States in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s when he was really most active and releasing most of his books on the craft. So you sort of get some of the information on the evolution of how we've grown as witches. Early witchcraft in the 50s in a lot of places could be quite homophobic, for instance. And there was a lot of argument over whether people who are, who are LGBTQ plus should be accepted into certain witchcraft traditions. And
Really?
so, yeah, so we trace some of that history in the book.
Oh, that's
I'm glad Ray was actually pretty good about it from the start. One of his first initiates was a gay man, and by the early 70s, he was pretty outspoken that everybody should have a place in the circle. So that's all in the book.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, I cannot wait to get my copy of both books. So, how else we know? Again, you have lots and lots of books on the craft, little books, big books. So, how did your path come along? How did you get into this witchy world of yours?
So this hurts me to say, but when I was younger, I was president of my church youth group, and I was pretty conservative, and I also had really short hair, kind of like buzz cut hair, which breaks my heart. What a waste of this beautiful hair
Your beautiful
doing that when
locks.
I was younger. Yeah, probably would have had more girlfriends. But so I was on that path for a while, and then when I was 21, I discovered a book called Celtic Magic by DJ Conway. And at the time, I loved Led Zeppelin. I was also wrestling with some things. I have a gay stepbrother who came out of the closet a year or two before that. And a lot of my Christian friends were like, oh, he's terrible, right? He's going to hell. And I was like, he's so much better now that he's honest with himself, because it means he's being more honest with everybody around him. So I found myself loving Led Zeppelin and questioning things. And I stumble upon this book, Celtic Magic, and I pick it up because Led Zeppelin liked Celtic things. And also, my mind is open to looking at alternatives. And the book's really not about Celtic magic. It's a Wicca 101 book, really, with a name that says it's something else. And I thought that's it right there. I wanted to date
Wow.
that girl on the cover in the worst way when I was 21. And I fell in love with Wicca reading that book and been practicing ever since. My first book was not Buckland's Big Blue, but I think I got it like 5 books in. It was pretty formative too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think the big blue book and the candle magic book. I remember
Mhm.
I actually think I got a used copy of that one, like at a
Candle
secondhand
Magic.
store. Yeah, the Candle Magic.
Yeah. Candle Magic was such a big book when it came out in 1970. There had never really been anything like it. Today, we kind of take witchcraft books for granted. There's so many
Yeah,
witchcraft books. But in 1970, there were really only a handful. And Ray, when he wrote that book, tried to have it both ways. So there are spells for the old religion in practical candle burning rituals, and then there are things that are kind of more Christian, where he uses psalms for the candle magic
that's
and
right.
things.
That's right.
Yeah, man.
I
It's also not
forgot.
very practical. A lot of the spells call for like 12 candles. When I was a college kid, I was like, I can't afford 12 candles. You get one. I can afford one, right? So
Right.
sometimes I make fun of that book a little bit because it's just not as practical as I think it should be. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the cover I had. I don't, mine must be lost somewhere. I probably lent it out to somebody, which happens because I really have held a hold on to my books as a rule, but that one's long lost.
If people are going to steal something, it's usually a spell book, right? And maybe
Yes.
they just need it more than you do at that point, right?
Maybe they need it more than I do.
Yeah.
Or again, I do tend to lend things out and like they forget, I forget. But it's all good. It's where it needs to be. Um, so other plays people might recognize you again is from our Wednesdays, the Witches Movie Coven. That's a coven of a different type, a definite coven of a different type. So what do you say we do? We review movies
We review movies. People put hexes on me. That is a big
every
part of the show
week,
every
every
week.
week.
That's right. Like say something even a little critical of some movies, and everybody gets mad at you.
Yeah. But it's
Like
really fun.
it
Heather,
is.
our other co-host, she wrote the book about witchcraft in movies. So she is the expert on all such things. I'm probably the least educated in so many movies because I'm the least of the film and TV watcher of all of us. So I have to watch a new movie, and sometimes it is a new movie every week. But you are my high point of that. Besides, we all give our opinions and never agree, and we vote on them wands up and wands down, and Courtney does her quotes, and Richard Leal gives a completely unbiased synopsis. Before we get into Heather's 5 things we need to know about that movie, with our Mankey Movie Minute. You are a master at the Mankey Movie Minute. How did that even come about? Explain what, I mean, it's different every week. And I don't even know how to explain it. You might better than I do. People just have to tune in on Wednesdays.
It it started as like a movie trailer thing. So if you're on YouTube, there is this running series called Honest Trailers where they take a movie and sort of make fun of it for a while. Even if it's good, they'll make fun of it. And I was like, that would sort of be fun to do on our show. But I got away from that after a while because it was so hard to do every week because it just felt like you were repeating yourself because there's a formula to all the honest trailer things. And I was like, well, I want to break the formula. Also, sometimes it's hard to make fun of a movie that you really love. So you have to find new ways to make fun of it. Like I made fun of Snow White last week by making up dwarves that were left on the cutting room floor
Yeah.
from that. So now it's just sort of whatever jokes I feel like I can pull out is kind of how we do it. But it is fun to have it like a scripted bit because most of the show is not scripted at all. And then
No.
I sit down every Wednesday or Tuesday and write some jokes about the movie, and it usually works pretty well. And I'm pretty good at doing voices now, so if I'm doing it, this is a movie about, and I can raise my voice up and down to add dramatic gravitas when dramatic gravitas is needed for certain
Yes.
films. Yeah.
You are very good at that, I must say. It is my favorite moments of the thing. I love us from beginning to end, and we never know what we're going to do or what we're going to be. But anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, I don't know why, Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 Eastern, we are live on YouTube and on social medias when that picks it up. My YouTube picks it up. Watch movies with us and Black Phillip. So
It's
what's, Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm so I keep trying to bring everything back to this book because it took me
Come
two
back to the books.
yeah, it took me
Squirrel.
It took me like 2 years to write this book when most of the books I've written have been like 6 to 9 months. I don't have your travel schedule, so I have more time to write. I look at Patty's travel schedule and I just get tired. Yeah,
Yeah,
anytime you text her, you never know what state or country she's in or
never.
how early she got up in the morning. It's crazy how often you travel. I mean, I
It
do it
is.
some, but it's not nearly that much. But usually I write a book in 6 to 9 months, and this took 2.5 years.
Why?
And Ray
Is it,
was in some movies, so bringing it back to him. He
was he playing a witch in movies? Was he being of himself, or was he an actor?
he wanted really badly to be an actor. When he was young, he did a lot of stage plays when he was in England, and later on, he wrote some screenplays and tried really hard to break into doing some acting stuff. But in the 80s, he was in a terrible movie that was made in Virginia where he played a professor. And it's the worst movie. Like we could never watch it on the movie Coven because it's so bad. It's like looks like
That
something for
that
public
that's
access comedy. Yeah,
that
it's
sets the
really
bar
bad.
really low if something's too bad for us to watch.
It's really true. I mean, it has to be awful. But that's the amount of work I had to do. I had to watch really, really bad movies to write this book. No stone unturned sort of thing. I think it's like called Mutants, like Attack of the Mutants or something. And it's just a really awful, awful, awful movie. But he also talked to a couple of famous directors who were interested in writing witchcraft movies in the 70s. And one of the movies that we watched on our show, he was one of the like technical directors. Like he had gotten brought out to talk about witchcraft, and none of that actually made it into the movie, but at least he got to talk to somebody. And then I think he's an extra in one of the scenes. Gosh, I have to look it up and see what movie that was. Thankfully, I wrote it down in a book.
So now we'll all know. So when in his day they didn't use consultants so much on witchcraft movies and stuff because he that seems like he would have been a natural.
Right. And there were people who were interested in it though, because they wanted to do something that was kind of accurate. From 65 to 75 was really a time for the occult. So people were more interested in the occult than they had been previously in other decades. And then it kind of waned out again at the part of the later 70s. But for a while though, the occult was a really hot thing. So people wanted to do movies and TV shows about it. And if you went to the grocery store and you had one of those little spinner racks of paperback books, you would find witchcraft books on them. Most of them
Really?
were bad. They weren't really very good, but they were from major publishers and were $2.99 or whatever they cost back then, $1.99. I had a friend who used to collect those books, and sometimes there would be like a color cigarette ad in the middle of the witchcraft book, which is really hilarious in retrospect.
That is funny. Yeah, no, I do not remember that. So probably Death by Disco as disco came in and the world
Yeah,
changed. Yeah. Oh.
yeah.
So do you have your next book figured out yet?
I'm doing a book on the goddess. It's called The Great Goddess of the Witches. I wrote The Horn God of the Witches a few years ago, and this is
Yeah.
kind of a companion piece to that. So
Oh,
very
that's nice.
excited.
I
Yeah,
have your Horn God book. It's beautiful. It's very different. It's good.
it's one of the better things I've done over the years, I think.
Uh,
Yeah,
just trying to catch up with Buckland. A few more to go, but
it's true. It's true. I've,
yeah.
50 more and I'll be there.
I know you don't travel quite as much as I do, but you're on the road probably more than anybody else in our coven. So do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, I usually am somewhere at least once a month. I'm going to the Spring Mysteries in Seattle, Washington in April. I'll be at Austin Witch Fest in May, which is a huge event with like over 2,000 witches, which is really very cool and exciting. There's Pagan Unity Festival in Tennessee, which is at the end of May, early June. And then I'm going to two events in the Northeast. There's Free Spirit Gathering and Harvest Gathering in Connecticut. So I'll be pretty busy. Hopefully, I
Yes,
find
yes.
time to
So
write this book.
yeah. You on a plane, on a plane. That's what I keep telling myself. That's when I'm going to catch up and do all these little the things you have to do along. I'm not real good at it on a plane, but it's so funny for all the events I do. Mine are always more paranormal led or like self help, spiritually kind of stuff. but not specifically pagan or witchy. I am. And they might change the title because it's to Pagan Mnemonicon, October 26th. You should come and we could do our first convention together. It's in
Where's that
Wisconsin.
at again?
Paganiconemon, Paganimacon. It's
I'm actually
October.
might be in Wisconsin. Somebody asked me about doing a festival in Wisconsin that same weekend. So, maybe we'll figure it out.
That's probably it. Was their name Terry?
Oh, it wasn't. I don't think it was. I think it was more of like a small witch
Or maybe
con, but
he's
we'll
working with other people. But
yeah,
that would be great if we could not just cross paths all the time on our flights to our different events. Because I want to work into so yeah, we'll see what it is. And he
yeah,
does usually more of the paranormal stuff. But he's a witch and a pagan. So he's just not sure about the name because no one can say it. Paganomicon.
yeah. I can't remember what this guy told me what the name was, but he wanted me to do a Samhain ritual and stuff there. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
that
it's the
that would
same
be
one. If it's the
maybe.
same state and is it the last weekend in October?
Yeah, it's the last full weekend in October, like
Yeah.
right before you would celebrate Samhain. So it's not
Yeah.
quite Samhain weekend.
Not quite
Yeah,
Samhain. Yeah. I hope
yeah,
it's the same one. So tell him yes.
yeah. We'll figure it out. I told him I would go. My wife already said you can go.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, yeah.
That is very nice that you asked me. My husband never, as a rule, knows where I am ever. Where are you?
My
Chicago.
my my wife does all of my booking for me, like travel, because if you
Oh,
let pagan festivals book your travel, you're always on a 5 a.m. flight, like the cheapest flight in a seat in the middle next to the back toilet. And there's some diva in me, and I just can't have that.
no.
It has to be a little bit better than that.
Believe me, I know because I've been on a lot of the back seat by the toilet
Mm,
on the 5 a.m.
yeah,
flight, which is kind of the norm for me. I think my craziest one was Michigan Paracon, and they
mm,
booked it. And it was literally 4 airports, 3 time zones, and like 20 hours.
yeah.
I had to for Pacific to Mountain to Central to Eastern in one day. And trying to even time what time you
Mm,
get on the plane was not good for my little brain.
yeah. We usually find cheap flights, but like we do it ourselves to sort of avoid some of that. And if I book my own travel, then I get the miles, and then
Then
I
you get
can
them out.
upgrade myself for less, which is
Yes.
kind of what I do. Not that I'm flying first class. I'm just flying aisle seat, which is sometimes a big upgrade.
It can be a very big
Mm,
upgrade. Yes.
yeah.
Especially flying these days isn't what it used to be. So what do you think of, again, world is crazy. We're not going to get into
Mhm,
politics. We don't. But how we as witches
mhm,
proclaiming what it is,
mhm.
do we have a heads up on where the rest of the world? Are we suffering just the same? Or how can we use our faith, our belief system, to get us through easier these trying times we're in?
I think witchcraft is empowering and allows you to take control of your own circumstances. I don't think that I can do a spell, to remove a president or a politician or whatever, but I can do spells to make what I'm doing more effective and to make my life better and to help my friends around me, to keep them safe, to empower them. So that's sort of what I focus on, is the personal empowerment during these times and empowering my friends and community, especially those who are on the margins of society, the people
Right.
who, might be attacked or are going to have issues and stuff. I want to give them energy. I want to be an advocate, for them and to speak loudly because I think that in a position to do so. I also think that witches being in tune with the world a little bit more than other groups, being in touch with the change of the seasons and whatever else, we can find joy and beauty in places that other people ignore that joy and beauty. Right now, where I live in California, it was 85 yesterday. It was our first like really warm day of the year, and all the flowers opened up. And last night while I was sleeping, it smelled like a flower shop in
Wow.
my house. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was intoxicating, and it brought me a smile. I mean, it's been a crazy week if you look at things politically that we can't control. But I found joy in that moment. And I think it's important to try to find joy in the moments. And just finding joy doesn't mean that you're ignoring everything else. It
No.
just means that you're taking care of yourself a little bit. Because if all you are is anger and rage, that's all you'll be is anger and rage. And you have to find something to make you smile now and again. You can still laugh, you can still appreciate beauty. And I think doing so is really important.
Yeah, I do too. And you said it. I think it's about that. This is a empowerment belief
Mhm.
system, and what the world is trying to do is take away our power, take away our free thinking, take away our individual. So, yeah. So maybe that's why there is such an upsurge. Why do you think there is such an upsurge in witchcraft right now? Do you think it's
I think it started in 2015 when people see their liberties, their identities being taken away or marginalized, and you're looking for something to empower you. And that's what witchcraft does. You're trying to control your circumstances, and we can do that to some degree with spell work.
yeah,
And I think that's why we've been in sort of this boom period for witchcraft for a while. And I
yeah,
think, and especially the pandemic too, that was another circumstance that we had no control over, right? I mean, you really feel strict of what you can do during that sort of a period of time. So how do you find joy? How do you find power? You do it through the craft and through magic.
yeah. Perfect. I love that. So anyway, before we go, you guys have to check out this man, check out his books, see his appearances. So tell everybody how they can find you, your books, your social media, websites, etc., etc.
I'm very lucky. I'm one of 3 Jason Mankeys in the entire United States, and I dominate all of the Google search engine searches for me. I always feel bad for the Christian minister who shows up number 20, but I don't feel that bad for him. So I'm easy to find. I'm pretty much on all of the major platforms: Instagram, TikTok, sadly, still Facebook. I still have a Twitter X account, though I don't use it very often
Yeah.
anymore, but I'm still there. So I'm pretty easy to find. And as I said, I travel a lot. I'm somewhere at least once a month, and I love teaching and I love doing rituals in public. That's my favorite thing to do. Writing is just a way to be able to do that. I hate writing. I'd much rather just talk.
Says the guy who has 11 books.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you so much. Any last words of wisdom for everybody before we go?
Just be strong, empower yourself, do your magic, find beauty.
Words of wisdom indeed. Thank you, Jason, for bringing your wisdom, your beautiful blonde locks, your Black Phillip to the witching hour.
Thank you, Patty.
Great. Let's do a quick commercial.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to say that this week on the witching hour, we have blah, 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 witch author Jason Menke. What are we going to talk about this week, Jason? And in 3 or 4 lines, you could say your new book, hold it up, High Priest, Life in the World, whatever you want to say. It's just a little
Okay.
commercial. Thanks. Okay. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Witching Hour. We have a beautiful, lusciously locked man, dear friend, witch author, man about town, Jason Menke. You might recognize him from Movie Cabin or from other shows. What are we going to talk about this week, Jason?
Probably your book, Dollcraft, and then my book, High Priest.
I haven't got my hands on either of them yet, but yeah. Tune into the Witching Hour and you'll get glimpses of